Donald Trump's ability to negotiate has nothing to do with him. His wealth, his know-how, his talents is all from God. His decision is, does he want to engage in that which the Bansham just put in his mind? Of course, you see. So that's a fundamental flaw in his thinking. As a result of the fact that he thinks that, he's an incredible negotiator, what's he going to do? Well, what's he going to try to do now is negotiate the peace between Israel and the Arabs. That's what he thinks he can do. In a certain sense, it's almost like a real estate deal, He's going to get the Israel and the Arabs to compromise on real estate, property, right? Land. That's what land for peace is. Isn't that real estate? But like I say, it's not going to happen because he doesn't understand what's involved in this type of thinking, you see. Now, maybe he can negotiate a ceasefire, maybe in a truce, maybe even a truce. But he cannot negotiate a peace, as you will see why. Because that concept of a peace between Israel and the Arabs, which is really between Yishmael and the Jewish nation, okay, is dependent on the Messianic era. It's dependent on the Geula itself. Because you have to understand that. And this is the mistake that they all make. In any case, why is this a mistake? Well, one of the problems is that it's not about negotiations. You cannot negotiate a deal like this. That's his mistake. Negotiations involve what? What's the fundamental idea of negotiations? That A wants to negotiate, and B, the other side, wants to negotiate. Obviously, they both have to agree that they want to sit down and negotiate. You see? Okay, each one is going to try to take his own position. So then each one is going to try to show, how they both can gain by coming in the middle, so to speak. But fundamentally, you have to have two like-minded, equal-minded people that want to sit down and negotiate and come to some type of terms. If one side doesn't want to negotiate, what does it mean to negotiate? What are you going to do? You know what they say? You can drag a horse to the water, but you can't make him drink. Even if you drag the one side, so what? And this is a fundamental flaw. The concept or the conflict between the Jews and the Arabs is not negotiable. Why? Because they lack the mindset of one of the parties to negotiate. That's simple. You see? So what in the world are you doing trying to negotiate? It's a very simple concept when you think about that. But the problem with Donald Trump is that he thinks, since he has been very successful, that he will be able to negotiate. And that's the mistake that he makes. It's not negotiable. Why? Why is this not negotiable? First of all, the fundamental reason why it cannot be negotiated is because Islam as a religion is against it. Islam believes that any lands which were captured by the Arabs is holy to them, and it must be either maintained by them or recaptured. So then how in the world can they give land to Israel or recognize the state of Israel? It is impossible according to Islam. And these people are Islamic. They believe in Islam, you see. So therefore, theologically, it is impossible, you see. So that automatically shuts out the whole, shuts out the entire deal. The second thing is that if Abbas does negotiate, he will be assassinated the next day. And that's what Arafat once said. I remember once mentioned. They once mentioned to Arafat, well, why don't you, the one guy wants to give you everything. Rabin and all that, he wants to give you everything. Why don't you negotiate? So he says, what are you, out of your mind? If I sit down and agree to recognize Israel, and I agree to swap lands or whatever, he's dead. He's a dead man the next day. So how could you possibly do it? So that's the second reason why this cannot be negotiated. Because one side fears for his life, if he sits down. A third idea, which is probably worse, because if they do negotiate and reach a conclusion, then that will be recognized as international law. Each side recognizes that they reach an agreement, and it becomes law. And you can't look at, and this is not in any way a laughing matter. Once it's international law, if the Arabs violate that, then Israel, according to international law, has the right to destroy any Arab country, because it's, hey, you recognize this, you know what I'm saying? How do you do this? So they can never allow this agreement to be enshrined in international law in terms of the United Nations or any country. In other words, they're locking themselves in, which they cannot do. So that's impossible. And that's a very important idea. So that's the third reason why. A fourth reason is Abbas is not president. He hasn't been president in 2006. So who in the world are they negotiating with? He is an illegal president of the Arab lands. So what kind of legality does his agreement have? You see. The third thing is the Arabs themselves can't stand the guy. He's hated in Ramallah. So like, who in the world is negotiating? Another idea, okay? Even if he negotiated, right? He's only one man, right? Hamas will disagree, so will Hezbollah, so will Iran, so will Al-Qaeda, so will ISIS. They'll all disagree, and they'll laugh at the entire agreement. So who's he making a deal with? An 82-year-old man? I think he's 82. An 82-year-old man that's basically in control of almost nothing. The whole thing is a joke, you see. So therefore, what in the world are they talking about when they talk about a two-state solution, you see? Not only that, but Abbas is a terrorist. Whoever thought he's a moderate guy? He's fundamentally a terrorist. You know, he denied the Holocaust in his thesis. But it's more than that, you know. They praise and they grant victory to all the terrorists that kill Jews. They celebrate it. They name streets after these guys. So then what are we talking about? I'm not even, and that's besides that. So he's a terrorist. Fatah isn't a moderate organization. It is a terrorist organization. And not only that, their textbooks are filled with incitement against Israel. So what he's doing is he's teaching his entire next generation to hate Israel. So not only can't he negotiate, even they can't negotiate because they hate Israel. All the kids. I mean, look what we're dealing with here, you see. Not only that, but it's known that Islam, and that's the deal with Muhammad, what he did is he felt that it is proper to deceive somebody and in the end you can kill them. In other words, we're not looking here about, you know, the means to the end. That the means to the end can be deceitful as long as we get the end by destroying the people that don't accept Islam. So the whole concept of a peace deal is nothing more than war by political means. It's really what it is. So how can anybody fall for this? You see. So that's another reason why the whole thing makes no sense. More than that, who's the greatest enemy of the Arabs? The Arabs. We have no idea of how much Arafat stole from the Arabs. I mean, it was reportedly worth $2 billion, right? What do you think he did? You think he took a teaching job? And that's how he's worth $2 billion? The money's, and it's astounding to watch European, how fools they are. You give money to these guys, it doesn't go to the government or the Arab people. It goes all to the guys who are in charge. These are the guys, especially with Hamas and so on. So what does it mean that you want to put them in charge of a two-state solution? All they'll do is take all the money and all the economic, aid. They'll just take it for themselves. So why are you even talking to these people? And besides that, there is absolutely no legitimacy to their claim. Anybody who reads the Torah, biblical, it's all about Eretz Israel. Yerushalayim is mentioned in Tanakh over 600 times. It's not mentioned once in the Quran. Not only that, we have the famous first Rashi, right? Where Rashi says, why does the Torah begin with that Hashem created the world? Why doesn't it begin with HaChodesh HaZeh Lochem, that this month shall be to you for the first month, a mitzvah, in Parshas Bo. Why do we begin with a whole Chumash in famous Rashi? Because if the nations of the world say, hey, what are you doing with Israel? It's our country, and you stole it from us. So the Jews will say, excuse me, it's not yours, it's God's. And he decides who he gives it to. It's amazing, that first Rashi anticipates, right, the whole problem of the 21st century of Israel. And it goes actually into the 20th century. It's amazing how that first Rashi says exactly what will happen in the end of time, you see. But besides that, it's biblical. The whole Tanakh is filled with the fact that the Baruch Shem says, I give you the land. And they know that. So you are violating the commandment of God, of the Baruch Shem, when you allow the Arabs to have anything of Israel. It's all. And not only that, but the Torah spells out the exact borders, of Israel, so they can't say, well, we didn't know that the borders were. So Israel, the Jews, have biblical rights. Then there's historical rights. Everybody knows that Israel belongs to the Jews. It's even in the New Testament. I hate to bring that as a proof, but even in the New Testament, even the Christians admit that the Jews have Israel, because their guy, right, he went and turned over the tables of the money changers, whatever he did. It was in the temple. They say themselves, it's the temple. So Islam is against even Christianity, you see, that recognize, of course it's Israel's. Who are you playing around with? It's astounding. So if it's historically Israel for thousands of years, they have historical rights. How do you take it away from them? You see. Another idea, legally, because the League of Nations, which was the one who gave it to them, was signed, said that Israel has, that the Jewish people have Israel, and they formalized it not only with the Balfour Declaration, which was an English document statement, but there was a conference in 1923, it's called the San Remo Conference. They legally said that Israel belongs to the Jews, including Jordan, you see. So legally, and the UN adapted all the resolutions of the League of Nations. So we're talking legal here, you see. So if you put all of these things together, can you please tell me how anybody can negotiate with the Arabs when you hear all of these ideas? It's insane. But it's more than insane. It is completely dishonest, you see. It's an incredibly dishonest position, and they will be held in judgment. But I'm throwing out these ideas. I guarantee you, this is what the Moshe is going to tell them. What are they going to say? There is nothing to say. They will be severely punished, because all of these ideas indicate that they're all frauds. More than that, they're all evil, because everybody knows, which is the very fundamental idea, that the Arabs want to destroy the Jews. Everybody knows that. Hamas even has it in their constitution. So then who are you playing around with? All you succeed is weakening Israel and allowing them to be destroyed. How could you do that? And the answer is because that's the new modern form of anti-Semitism. The new modern form of anti-Semitism is anti-Israel. It's because it's no longer appropriate to be an anti-Semite. Doesn't pass. You can't do that, right? It's not ethical, it's not moral. But you can be anti-Israel, which really means you're anti-Semite, you see. So therefore, how do you weaken when you know that the Arabs, if they were ever had a two-state solution, would destroy the Jews? How do you do that? When you know this, you see. So this is one thing we recognize, which is a very important idea. You see, how can this man Trump do what he's doing? Not only that, Trump said, that he always keeps his promises. He's made that declaration several times. He already broke 3, you see, and they're all related to Israel. The first promise he broke, Jerusalem, you said you'd make it the capital. And now you're telling everybody you're going to look into it? Excuse me, look into what? How you can break your promise? What's that supposed to mean, look into it? You said that was your campaign promise. And you said you never break a promise. You said you'd make the capital of Israel, Jerusalem. What happened? What's the excuse? That's the first thing he said. The second thing he said, right? is that he was okay with the settlements. And now he's telling everybody, you got to put them on hold. What are you doing? You said that it was okay, you know, that Israel can build settlements. In fact, everybody in Israel understood that to be true. And now you're stopping them from building settlements? How do you do that? And not only that, but you also said that, hey, it's up to them. Whatever deal they work out is fine. You see? And I said, that's it. Let them work out together, the deal. So then how can you intervene in trying to put a deal together? Because we know what's going to happen. What always happens is what? Is that Israel is pressured to give up everything. But the whole concept, how can you allow the Arabs to have a two-state solution? They have nothing in Israel, as I pointed out previously. The whole thing is a violation of the Torah and God's will. So how do you even do that? You see. So Trump has got big problems.